doctors don't respond to propaganda. And so that's what makes it a really unique market. It makes it really appealing because there's kind of a logical pathway to partnering with them effectively. But a lot of organizations have trouble with it just because, propaganda is a frequent, business tactic, but just doesn't work in medicine.
Welcome to the Risk Never Sleeps podcast, in which we learn about the people that are on the front lines delivering and protecting patient care. I'm Ed Gaudet, the host of our program, and today I'm pleased to have Sherri Douville, CEO of Medigram, on the show with us. Welcome, Sherri.
Thank you, Ed. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. So we've got a lot to unpack. You have a stellar background, so this will be hopefully very interesting to our listeners. And of course, I'm really interested in learning more. I recently joined your advisory group, so obviously I've been starting to work directly with your team and your mission there, which is exciting. So, but let's start with first. Take us through Medigram and your role there as. In terms of the work you're obviously leading there, as well as the Taylor and Francis group, and the role as a series editor for the Trustworthy Technology and Innovation in Healthcare.
Well, thank you so much. Well, the two roles go together. Mm-hmm. So, I'm, as you said, I'm honored to be CEO at Medigram, and thank you for your kind introduction. So we are the mobile medicine company. And our business is to drive safety, efficiency, and profitability for health systems with data and AI-informed virtual mobile clinical programs. Now, we've been very fortunate because we've had a lot of coaching from the industry, from top leaders that we both know, and they've really emphasized the criticality of cybersecurity, mm-hmm. and so the fact that it's the largest attack surface, and really wanting to see new types of companies with new DNA. That are authentically looking at how they can, contribute to the constant and, evolution of that part of technical development. So I think, software is very interesting to me. My background is actually a scientist. And so I look at things in very discrete sort of first principles terms. And so the idea of what medicine requires, like a medical grade software, is really what drives, because that's the only thing that stakeholders will accept and will ultimately align around. So,
yeah, and I love some of the principles too. The transcend propaganda and misinformation in technology. What does that mean to you? I love that, by the way.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I think one of my formative experiences, I spent a long time working at Johnson & Johnson, a little over a decade. It's fabulous company, fabulous experience, and over a dozen disease states. And part of what made it great wasn't just the, company itself and, the incredible amount of money that they invest in training. But also I made very close friends, and even married one of them amongst the physicians that I interacted with in those dozen disease states. And it's interesting how, the type of person that's attracted to medicine and as a leader, the types of sort of governance and principles that they propagate in their leadership positions are sort of tried and true and really won't change in our lifetimes. And so that's what the transcending propaganda through our book series is about. Now, Taylor and Francis I'm very honored to be series editor, and they are the number one healthcare IT publisher. They're number 3 for all of academia behind Oxford and Cambridge. Mm-hmm. And so I think the thing I learned at Johnson & Johnson is that doctors don't respond to propaganda. And so that's what makes it a really unique market. It makes it really appealing because there's kind of a logical pathway to partnering with them effectively. But a lot of organizations have trouble with it just because, propaganda is a frequent, business tactic, but just doesn't work in medicine.
Yeah. And it should have that rigor and that precision that obviously the medical profession is used to, as well as that evidence to back it up. So the true scientific method, if you will, of publishing. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah, because you want them to trust it. Otherwise, they won't engage with it. and contribute to it. And so we've been honored to have some of the best physician leaders. I'm not going to embarrass them now, but international award-winning medical educators that have, really stepped outside their comfort zone to help us, with this series, because there isn't really a home for it in academic medicine or just in general. So they extended themselves to provide leadership, to this series. I'm very honored by that. And I know all of my technical counterparts that work on the work are also honored. I should also call out IEEE is another hugely formative experience. I get to be co-chair of Trust for really the industry defining standard for clinical IoT with some amazing people that I'm sure Mitch Parker. And they also, they together with the physician leaders provided like the core initial founding leadership of the book series. So that was just the person to orchestrate it, but they really made what it.
Excellent. Excellent. How did you get into healthcare?
I didn't get into it. I was magnetized to healthcare. And so what happened was that I grew up and my mom had a disability, and I spent a lot of time in and around healthcare. A lot of times we're taking care of her. And so the work that I do is also a reflection of the challenges that have stood the test of time that I think really can be solved. I think we really are at an inflection point in terms of talent, technology, and just awareness of systems engineering to really be able to make dramatic transformations. And so I'm excited about that. But yeah, I grew up, this whole uncoordinated care challenge is something I'm sure a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
So I'm also lucky to, I think I mentioned that I did marry a physician who's also chief medical officer, not a regular doctor. He has a lot of experience with clinical transformation programs as health system chief medical officer a few times. And we also have a nursing executive who has 200 project experiences, Jeff, in 40 health systems. And so I think that it's, the right time to think about, how do we leverage technology to really transform the health system?
It does feel like we are at that inflection point. And I was reading on your LinkedIn page a recent post about the ghost and why people ghost or flake out. I love that. Let's maybe unpack that a little bit. What were you, what were you going for there?
I'm a person that I think you can't solve a problem unless you diagnose a problem. In addition to all the hard sciences that I've studied, we use science for everything. We even use science in our marriage. I won't get into that here. But when I am blessed with a credible organizational psychologist, one of the top ones of our time. And so what we work on together is really, how do you operate? Because cybersecurity, as you know, is more of a general management job than it is a technical job. The technical details are very important. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It's the business of cybersecurity is business.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it, oversimplified, it's really collaboration between different functions that makes it hard. It makes it really rewarding and stimulating and interesting. But that's what makes it really hard. So the ghosting thing is because I believe that, we, even in our lifetimes, there have been decades where people could be successful doing simple things. I just don't think that exists anymore. I mean, there's maybe some certain simple things where people have success. I don't want to name things because I think everything, has gotten exponentially more complicated, but especially in healthcare technology, it's just it's a lot of complexity. And so this thing about ghosting, so Dr. Felix Enkel, who was International Medical Educator of the Year recently, and a co-author in one of our last chapters in Advanced Health Technology, he wrote the article about ghosting. And my response to it was that, and this is ghosting in medical education. And my response to it is that I think a lot of times, people don't know how to assess what the scope of work is going to be, especially when they're working with large groups of people. And as a consequence, they just end up, not wanting to get into a conflict. So they just ghost. That was basically the gist of the post.
Yeah. There's a lot of courage that's required to transform something. And typically it's never incremental, right? Transformation is a step function. And they're right. There's a safety in numbers, and people tend to hide within the context and construct of the committee, if you will. And transformation really takes that leadership, someone to step out in front and drive the change, become that change agent, or change the catalyst for that change. So that's I loved your article, by the way. That was great. So,
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
yeah.
that.
No,
Yeah,
we don't talk enough about it, I think. And I think if we talk more about it, we might be able to do more of it.
Yeah, in terms of having courage to transform things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as you look at your next 12, 24 months, what are some of your top priorities, 3 to 5 priorities that you have in your sights?
Well, I think for your audience, being, really a very strong cybersecurity leader audience, and many of them that I'm very fond of, and look forward to continuing to see them succeed. And what we're working on together is just focusing on making technology, in particular the cybersecurity part of it. So the way that I see cybersecurity is I think I mentioned the word quality and the importance of quality in medicine. So that should extend to technology. You should have high quality technology that's medical grade for medicine. And the biggest contributor to that is having, sound cybersecurity principles. And so just making sure that people have the confidence, to shoot for that, to contribute to that, to continue developing that is, the biggest goal probably that your audience cares about. And we do that through a variety of ways. So, co-chair of IEEE, the publications are to help the CISOs and CIOs with their, cognitive clarity so that they can go after things, with confidence. And then, other modalities like the continuing medical education. We co-chair a first of its kind multidisciplinary technical CME program that is accredited for medical standards. So just pushing my friends, into thinking about and behaving within a range of standards that works for medicine is what I'm aggressively doing this year, in case you're wondering.
Excellent. And I noticed the 2 books behind you. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about those books?
Oh, thank you so much. So we have built a consortium, and most of whom, 100 of the top people in the field, across IT, cybersecurity, medicine, informatics, regulatory law. And like I said, we had IEEE and physician leaders really be the heart, the foundational, founding team for mobile medicine. So mobile medicine launched #1 in medical technology and medical informatics, long-term bestseller. And what it does is just help the CXO or the investor sort of quickly understand what needs to be in place for success for basically mobility. But really it applies to sort of all advanced technologies in medicine. So it walks them through, different elements of change management, project planning, team building, culture, because I think what a lot of people don't understand, I'm grateful to have learned this, is that culture is a foundational aspect. Culture and values is a foundational aspect of high quality technology. It's not the technical elements. So that's mobile medicine. And then advanced health technology is a different book. It's sort of not an evolution, because it's not the same. It's very different content. But what we did was that we radically expanded the technical team. And so mobile medicine is foundationally core IEEE for the technical side, and then a lot of regulatory law. Alicia Savage and Peter McLaughlin were the legal leads on that. And physician leads, made up the core, leadership team, together with William Harding, who's the CTO of the book series. But then we picked up, additional sort of technical talent, because of the challenge with technology and medicine is that while I talk about, and I do believe it's important that things be medical grade, we also have to bring people from outside medicine, have key skills. One of my favorite places to go is construction for talent, because they have really incredible project management, which is critical for success in this field. So we do have to bring people. And so I try to lead by example by doing that in the book series. So we brought people that are essential, like in implementation and customer success and project management and product management and product marketing that you would have to have. I think in the simplest terms, like one of the things that everybody talks about is data blocking. And the biggest thing that holds that back is actually a lack of product management in the health system. So it's just kind of a simple example. We just don't have people that can product manage in a healthcare context, right? So it's just one example of how all of us who are leading in this field have to work together to identify and build people that can do the work.
Yeah, I love that. And understand the why and connect the dots for the customer effectively, which is great. And I love how you connected culture and values, which most people forget about. It's so important.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It's like the oil in the engine.
And didn't someone say culture eats strategy all day long? I think Peter Drucker said that.
I'm also passionate about strategy. Yeah. Once you get to work with me more, you'll see that.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So tough couple of years for folks with the pandemic. How do you think we're doing post-pandemic as an industry?
I think we're at an inflection point, and what the reason why, as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you can relate to. I've worked most days and nights for several years, because I feel that it's just a kind of a small window of time. We have to make sure that things go in the right direction, and so it's too soon to celebrate, and it's too soon to declare victory. But I do believe, which is one of the reasons why I put that star-studded advisory board together, that if the right people get their heads together, that we can leverage, this challenging time into a transformation opportunity. And that's
well said. Well said. Absolutely. When you look back over the last couple of years, what are you most personally or professionally proud of?
Qualitative element and the quantitative element. So the qualitative element is just the messages of people of every different type of gender, ethnicity, role, saying that they got a job because of me, or they got a speaking opportunity or something. And so I'm most proud of that, having been able to help so many people get promotions, be successful. It's just, it's just a high. I can't explain it.
Oh, I know. I love that when it comes back around. Isn't it great? It's like,
but that's the qualitative part.
Yeah.
And the quantitative part is that, as an entrepreneur, there's so many, it's like the elephant problem we have, right? That there's so many different things that we have to do. And someone's always mad because you clip the toenail, or it doesn't seem like you got the Q-tip in that one part behind the ear, even though you're like his down an elephant. And so I decided to set this goal that no one could judge, that was for me. And I did reach it, and it was building 50 leaders I'm not 50 yet, but I'm ahead of schedule. I've got some time to go. But it was catchy, easy to remember.
Yeah.
So I set that, and what it did was it really helped me, because it's just, people really don't like innovation. There's a whole Wall Street Journal article about how it makes them sick. And the thing my husband says is that he is convinced that I was born to innovate and that I can't help myself. And there's just like that I just have to be allowed to do that, or else I won't live, but he just, I'm so lucky and grateful that he understands that about me. But I'm sure you've experienced this at some part in your career, and I'm sure you're past that now. But at one point, you probably did experience, people's, aversion to innovation, and that can be pretty challenging, right?
I think most people are,
averse,
afraid of it. I mean, it scares them. It's visceral.
Yeah, it's visceral, exactly. So the thing about my 50 by 50 is it was something for me, and something that so much could come out of that, in terms of meeting milestones. So it didn't take away from my job. It's definitely part of my job. And so that's why, for me, it was transformational, because it's kind of like a duck, you're kind of like, your feet are going, but you got to let the water,
Yeah. Let it roll down the back.
I'm sure you relate probably more than I even know, right?
I do relate. So yeah, no, you're speaking my language. So outside of your day job, what are you most passionate about? What would you be doing if you weren't doing this?
That's interesting. So I integrate life and work. So I don't really think of myself like as working or not working. I'm kind of working all the time.
Same way.
But the things what'd you say?
I said I'm the same way.
Okay.
I do have another love though. I love poetry, so I tend to write poetry when I can, but I've got to really squeeze it in. I got to find time for it. But
it's amazing. Yeah. So I love people, but I'm sort of an ambivert. I'm not really an extrovert. I'm not really introvert. But I think the thing that the people notice about me, and I've always been like this ever since high school, is that I have multiple different groups that I'm a part of. And then sometimes if it's necessary or useful, I'll bridge them. And that's how I spend a lot of my social time as well, which tends to also be productive for work, is that I'm bridging people that seem like they don't belong together. Art has been called the peaceable king. Yes.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. We're very similar, on another level with that. I tell my kids, cause my kids are like, you have a lot of friends. I'm like, well, I'm a connector and I'm a floater. So I'll connect people and then I float across groups. I don't like cliques. I like to be fluid, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
It sounds very similar.
Yeah. I relate to that. Yeah. I just defy being pinned down.
People like us are wired to be all in, and I can't be half in something. So when I'm working, you're right. I'm integrating it with life. I'm integrating it with, it's not so hard to separate the two, or the folks that will bring a different persona into the office. I could never figure that out. Like, why would you be somebody different than your authentic self?
And that's really important actually with young people as well. So people like us, that's why young people are attracted to working with us, is because they want authenticity.
This is great. So what, if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
So I think what I would tell her a couple of things. First is that just embrace who you are, and don't try to let other people put things on you. Because I think that's something that we all have to grow through. Different phases of that. And now I'm an expert in not letting people put things on me. But would have been handy if it could have happened sooner. And then what I would love to just reinforce, which is again something I've learned up over time, is I have a 3-part method that I ask all the leaders that I work with to adopt, and it's about being optimistic, being curious, and solving problems using 3 steps. And the 3 steps are: number 1, identifying the root cause of the issue. And number 2, including if it's a system issue, and identifying that and identifying components of that system, socio-technical systems, people, process, technology. Number 2 is accepting what's unchangeable. Very important that you understand, especially economics, what economic drivers are driving, different parties, different policies, different decisions. And the third thing is do it yourself. Like this 50 by 50 thing, right? It also has an equity component. So one of the things that I'm sort of known for, and I've never been one of those extreme people, and I've never been one of those issue people. But the one thing that's interesting is that equity was listed 747 times in the recent physician fee schedule. Mm-hmm. And that's something that most people in technology simply can't understand or don't understand. And honestly, they won't believe it unless they, see it or you explain it to them. And so that's one element, that I just kind of, part of my 50 by 50 was sort of just contributing to that myself. I don't wait for someone else or wait for some sort of, policy, environment or something else, just do it,
This is the Risk Never Sleeps podcast, so I have to ask you this question now. What's the riskiest thing you've ever done?
This job.
Amen.
The reason why I decided to do this was that I actually tried to get other companies and other people to take a look at the opportunity and to sort of tackle the opportunity. But so I have met my mentor, who's been the board chair for a long time, Wim Rolance, one of the most brilliant people in the world. Has launched multiple, billion-dollar businesses and bet his career on an employee standard, in a different context at a different time. But he and I both, looked at the market and for various reasons, it goes back to propaganda too about why companies or industries don't tackle problems because it does not fit into the dominant narrative. Like right now we have a dominant narrative around LLMs. There's been a long-term dominant narrative around, web apps, even though they don't work in hospitals.
Right.
So we just said I just had to do this because the leading cause of preventable death is still a delay in information. And remember, I'm married to the problem, so I had to live with it and have to watch him struggling all the time. Is the thing he has.
Too many clicks.
Well, and it doesn't work most of the time because most companies that have a heritage of being on a desktop to them, the mobile part is an afterthought, where we're really, from the CISO, CIO perspective and the physician's perspective, from a usability standpoint, that mobile application has to be purpose built, which is what we focus on. Right? It can't just be like an afterthought add-on of the desktop thing.
No, so I'm so glad you brought that up. Especially in healthcare, it has to be purpose built. If it's not, it doesn't work. And most entrepreneurs that are trying to provide a solution to healthcare, they don't get that.
They can apply something.
Yeah. Well, we did it in finance. I can do it here. It's not that way at all.
You wish them well, but
yeah.
Great for them, right?
You pray for them, exactly. Hardest lesson in your career?
I was trained in the scientific method, as a STEM person, and I also do work really hard to see things as a business person, and so it's like literally taking off different hats, because it had the scientific, paradigm that has gotten the access that I do have to this market, right? If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have access, and I wouldn't have partnership, right? But then there's a business part, and business is very non-scientific. And so, I think the challenge that I'm always challenging myself is, how to, when's the right time for me to become a Forbes contributor? Because in medicine, Forbes is not really respected as a legitimate journal, that would give me credibility in an academic medical environment.
Yeah.
Deep thing, whereas Taylor Francis is very helpful in an academic medical environment. So I think, the biggest, sort of challenge has to do with finding the balance that works for such misaligned, diverse range of stakeholders.
Yeah. Excellent. Any last advice to folks that are thinking about getting into the cyber profession or in healthcare?
People looking to excel is probably where I can provide, the best advice in terms of people who are in cybersecurity and healthcare. And just being true to yourself and looking for your tribe is not necessarily being exclusionary, being tribal, but making sure that you have the core people that have your back, that you have their back, and that you're growing and learning together. And going back to the thing I would have told my 25-year-old self, putting together a practice around excellence, for your core group, and how you identify the root cause of the issues that you're facing, and making explicit that you're accepting the unchangeable, and then making a decision to do things yourself because you only live one time. Right. So I repeat those 3 steps again, because you can do it in a few days. It's not some sort of overwhelming thing. You just need to start picking up the phone and calling, the smartest, most powerful people, and then asking them how you can improve or what you need to know that seems like you don't know. And you just need to develop practices with people that you trust and respect so that you can grow together. That's what my advice would be.
That's excellent. That's a great way to end the program. Thank you, Sherri. This is Ed Gaudet from the Risk Never Sleeps podcast. We've been speaking with Sherri Douville, the Medigram CEO. If you are on the front lines protecting patient safety, remember to stay vigilant because risk never sleeps.